This is the same agenda we had last time. We didn't change
It's on you. You're good.
Yep. Hi, and welcome to the September edition of the New Ulm Human Rights Commission. It's Monday, September 24th. I'd like to call the meeting to order. My name is Tim Frenning. I'm filling in for Dan Kolk, the chairperson. And I'd like to make a motion for the agendas. Everybody had a chance to look at the agenda for tonight's meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Any questions, comments, anything to add?
Motion to approve.
Any second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from August's meeting as well?
Yes.
Any questions or updates or anything that we want to add?
Just maybe one correction on number 5. Our next meeting would be August 27th. I think that's today's meeting, right?
Correct.
September 24 it should be.
Yep. Guessing it maybe was
It's
a
just a
carryover.
small typo.
Yeah,
Yep.
carryover from July possibly.
I move to approve.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
As amended.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to agenda item number 4, which is the Vitals app and regional evaluation for diversion. It's a presentation from Dave Borkert. You can stand up.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I'm Dave Borkert. I'm a commander with the New Ulm Police Department. And what I had talked with Chairman Kalk about some, I guess some new programs that we're considering, some new technology. And I just always like to keep everybody updated to the best of my ability. So thank you for allowing me to speak with you today about that. But this Vitals app, I think this is it's a new piece of technology. I think it's a step in the right direction. And basically what the app does is it would be like with using our smartphones, tablets, quad computers. So for example, if the person is, this would have to be voluntary, but if they're wearing a bracelet, I believe it can also, it'd have to have some type of chip. It could be, you could be wearing something like this, I suppose, around your neck. I think generally they have bracelets that they're wearing, but it would have to be, voluntary on their part. But when we come up to the scene, as far as our officers or as far as the medical responders, EMTs, paramedics, when they're pulling up, they'd be able to see, they'd have like basic instructions. My understanding is that it'd be like probably like what I refer to as like bullet points, probably just something that would need to know. That would make that situation better. Examples of that could include like if someone sometimes they have an authority disorder, like if they see someone in a uniform, they might react differently for whatever reason. There could be several reasons for that, but it's nice for the officers to know that. It's nice for the paramedics to know that when they're pulling up. Other examples is someone is dealing with, they were giving as an example of like with autism, and sometimes if they have some type of behavior or something that they just think the officer, just like we've had it before, and I think I've even talked with you, Mr. Mayor, about this before, like when you have individuals that maybe there's some special instructions. We used to, like back in the day, there was like, there's programs sometimes through Triad where someone would wear a bracelet and it says, refer to the refrigerator. Like there was actually more instructions on the refrigerator, or we were trained to look at certain spots. Generally it was with a magnet or something that was on the refrigerator that we could follow basic instructions. This would probably, it's on that same line of thought, but it's with technology, it's one step further. And another application is they're talking about like even with runaways, sometimes if someone has some type of disorder where it could even be suffering from Alzheimer's or something like that, if they're wandering away from the house at night. And we've had that happen. But like with this, it would even trigger the device in saying that you're within 1 block of this individual that's just been entered as a runaway. So, like I said, a nice step in the right direction. If anybody would be interested in joining us, we're going to be learning more about this on October 16th, and we have a meeting from 2 o'clock to 3 in Nicollet County. What we're really trying to do is working with our partners within the region, because it'd be nice if it's more than just one jurisdiction that's using this technology. I mean, I look at it, I'm always looking as an optimist. It'd be nice if something like this is just available statewide. Maybe that's not realistic, but as far as our partners, we work a lot with Nicollet County, and I know Nicollet County's really interested in this because, again, we share borders. We just deal with them a lot, but I'd like to have, and certainly they're going to be invited there as well, but like Sibley County, Warren County, Redwood County, places that we share borders with. Any questions on that?
I have one. Did you want to go first?
Oh, go ahead.
So can they be monitored 24/7, or is there a specific set of guidelines that it has to be a call-in or, something specific, or can, for no reason, it just be, that person be checked on?
My understanding is yes. I believe, again, it generally, and I think it's even optional with the individual. Some people, for whatever reason, don't like anything around their neck. But I think this is one option because maybe the bracelet bothers them for whatever reason. I think a lot of that's elective. The biggest thing is that they had this chip on. I mean, so whether it's by wearing it by a bracelet or something more like this, that's optional. I mean, I think in cases like that, we could probably work out where someone is being monitored. Normally, they would have, I would think, a personal care attendant in those situations. But this is just, and again, nothing's ever for sure thing. But I think this is just a step in the right direction. I think of, like, in my career, how many times this could have been used that would have made things a lot smoother. But does that answer your question?
Yes, but I always kind of look towards the other end, where what happens if the person has a criminal record? Can it be accessed secretly, where they're being monitored without their permission?
It's only what they're agreeing to put on this. So I believe normally it's just going to be like if you have to be within so many feet of this as well.
Okay.
So, like, for example, if they have the app, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some tests done to make sure that our devices are picking up on it. But you have to, and I maybe should have covered that, you have to be within so many feet. I think it's within like 100 feet. So when we're coming up, so it's just designed so, like, when we're coming to a medical, or like I said, if you're patrolling and this person has run away, and maybe sometimes we have information, there's no one to go to convenience stores. They like to go there, buy snacks or whatever. Literally, when we're pulling up, if you have, likely it would probably set our app off saying that this person was within 100 feet, the runaway. And I suppose it's a different code. That's what I'm picturing, and that's something I'll be able to verify at that October 16th meeting.
Okay.
Is this something that your patrol officers will have in their vehicles, a traffic stop or something like that? They would be able to look it up and know who they're dealing with?
I don't know if they can look it up. I think if they're within that range, it would set it off. And I think it's elective. I mean, I think a lot of the control is maybe with the personal care attendant, or and I'm normally seeing this as it's more. I think it's even marketed more towards, like, with a medical response. Mm-hmm. But there's a few other applications that you could utilize. But I think, primarily, I mean, I can think of, one example, and I keep pointing at the mayor, but there was a situation we've talked about where a resident in town, like, there was certain treatment that you needed, like, you can't be laying on your back, or you can't, what a normal medical response would be was to the contrary here. And I think a lot of times this individual's relatives had to almost, like, re-explain everything to the police or to the paramedics that were responding, because it was something that was outside of and there's a lot of, I guess, probably adrenaline going on when you respond to these medical calls and stuff like that. But I think, like I said, in a case like that, that's just one example that I think of, just because I think that would have been a logical alternative, or at least it would have been a benefit in a situation like that.
So going back to the example of referring to the refrigerator,
Yes.
So clearly, law enforcement or, emergency people would be inside for help reasons, but as they're going to the refrigerator, if there are illegal goods or paraphernalia, is that open it up to then them being arrested, since that's not what you're there for to begin with?
I was giving that as an example in the past. They would have, like, Triad had, if you're familiar with Triad, it's seniors and law enforcement in the community. That's the Triad working together. They had a program. In fact, I think my understanding is it still exists. But if you see a certain bracelet, it would say on there, medical, see refrigerator, or it would have someplace else. Generally, from my experience, it would always refer to the refrigerator. And I think they even trained when they were providing this training on this program. They suggested that just because you always have refrigerator magnets and stuff like that, and then they would have further explanation of what we're supposed to do, and it just had further instructions. Like now in this case like that, I suppose they could have some type of a code that said, check refrigerator, for further instruction, especially if you had some, like a laundry list
Sure.
of things you needed to go over. But generally, I think this is focused more on just bullet comments. So like if I got up there, my phone goes off and it says authority disorder, just be aware. It doesn't mean I can't walk up with a uniform, because I maybe have to if I'm wearing a uniform, if the person needs help, but just that I'm aware of that. So if there's blood pressure goes up, if I'm observing things like that, just so that as a professional, I at least recognize that there's this challenge involved. But getting back to your question, if I walk into a medical, if I walk up to a refrigerator, if it's in my plain view, I have to act on it,
And if
as long
they
as
were-
I'm there legally.
And if they were unconscious and not able to give you permission to come in and look around, is it still hold up?
Yeah, anything, as long as I'm there legally, as long as, like, so if I'm doing a medical response, if that's really the reason I'm there, and I'm in my search for this individual, like, for example, if someone fell over, they're behind that counter over there, I can't see them, and I'm looking, and, like, let's say I look around the corner, and I see marijuana, I don't want to get off the subject, but if I see, I'm trying to answer your question, if I see like a marijuana grow around the corner or something illegal, I can act on that. It's within plain view.
Sure.
But it has to be in my plain view, my plain sight and that I was there legally, whether, again, it's attending to a medical, or if I'm there because I'm executing an arrest warrant, I have to be there legally.
Okay.
And I can't be past that stage. Like if I'm there for a medical and it's on a gentleman sitting right over there and I see the gentleman, I can't run upstairs.
Right.
Because I have there's no reason for me to go up there.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
My assumption is this, then, the bracelet or whatever is on, because I've worked a little bit with mental health people, there's a chip in there that will give you the bullets exactly for a person that would be nonverbal or unable to respond even if they're medically alert. I mean, those bullets would come up to let you know that.
Exactly. That's exactly how I interpret it. So there'd be multiple examples. There could be the medical thing, this person,
Seizures and those kind of
Seizures.
things to go out with,
the
right.
person is nonverbal, in which a lot of times they'll verbalize something, but it's not speech.
And yet
it-
there are people with autism and what have you that will look like they're very competent and very alert and with you, and yet are still nonverbal. And your chip would have addressed that
Mm-hmm.
through the sign-up process, because it may not be visible on the wrist. It could be on the ankle, it could be somewhere
Correct.
else where it would not be offensive to them to be wearing.
Correct.
Okay.
That's exactly right. I mean, I'm always, it wouldn't be us making that choice, but I mean, I can even see a potential possibility where there's an actual chip. Whenever I think of an embedded chip, even just the thought of that always kind of makes me think of how something like that can be misused. But like, let's just say an
that
example
case,
where
it's
someone, if they've chosen to do this because it's like, the bracelet, they tend to rip it off, or if they have something around their neck, they're going to pull it and throw it or whatever.
right.
Because so I mean, I could see it in an example like that. That wouldn't be, because all we're doing is we're just going with the stuff that's
Okay.
reading that
And
information.
I guess I'm bringing this back because we've had a family that has asked us about help with a child that does have autism that is a runner. And if and when and how, and I'm seeing that as maybe being a possibility for this child, because he still would be a underage, but a vulnerable adult or whatever, that could be access to one of those kind of bracelets or that kind of apparatus.
Yes, and
And that would not be an age issue.
correct, ma'am. This would be for any age category, and this would, and that's exactly. I think that's one of the multiple uses for something like this.
A safety factor.
Yep. Any questions on that? Because I have one other short topic that's kind of related, very closely related. Any questions about the vitals? But yeah, if you're interested, carpooling, if anybody's able to join me at that October 16th meeting, again, 2 to 3 in Nicollet County, and there's going to be several of us going, like from Human Services and other law enforcement representatives from the area. So, but again, if you let me know, I'll just make sure that we have big enough car or something, van or whatever, to accommodate. Okay? Questions on that? Otherwise, Mr. Chair, with your permission, I'll move on. And then the other thing that I'm excited to talk about is, I don't know if you've been following there's been a little bit of media attention on this, but we're in the process of hiring a community-based coordinator. And so this person it's a new position. This is going to be a county employee. And when I say this is going to be, we haven't hired yet. Right now we're in the process of completing the job description for this individual and going, it's been approved to hire so they can start assembling, the county HR can start assembling their panel, their hiring panel and those type of administrative responsibilities. But this will be a county employee. It's going to be a social worker with mental health expertise. So basically what I think of won't just be limited to that, but more like a therapist or related type of background. And essentially they're going to be embedded with law enforcement. So they're going to be working really closely with law enforcement. It's not going to be a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week type of situation simply because they're hiring one person and you can't work 24 hours, 7 days a week. So, we've even discussed that when we would have this person working. We're going to be having them working what I think of traditional business hours, like 8 to 5 or something on that line, 7 to 4, Monday through Friday, simply because that's when there's a lot of resources available. And then on the other hours, they're going to have, we already have the contract with them, but New Horizons Crisis Center is going to be monitoring, and they're going to be a resource. And we can also still call this individual, we meaning law enforcement, outside those hours. But again, we're going to actually have a person working with Brown County law enforcement. When I say Brown County, it's not just limited to the county and Nolan Police Department. This is meant to be a resource for other cities, but their office is gonna be, we're planning on actually having it up at the sheriff's office, because the closer they're working with our law enforcement, stronger relationships, better working comfort levels and things like that. So instead of having the person even down at Human Services as far as their office, we want it up at the law enforcement center. And then I don't know if are you familiar with the Yellow Line project that Blue Earth County has been involved in? And what the Yellow Line project is it's literally, and if you Google Yellow Line Project Blue Earth County, they'll have a really well done video that kind of explains the background on their project. And Blue Earth County got a little bit over $1 million grant to work on this because they realized that in law enforcement and in the jails, jail's certainly no place to have individuals with mental health or chemical dependency issues. It's just not safe. It's not an effective place to have them for everybody's benefit. So they had received a fairly large grant, and they initiated it, and they've been very good partners as far as sharing information. And we didn't receive physically the funds to do it, but we do have their knowledge, what they've learned from trial and error. So this is essentially very closely related to Yellow Line Project. We've never called it the Yellow Line Project in New Ulm or in Brown County, but that's simply because we didn't want it to be mistaken. We're calling it RED. You've heard me probably talk about that's a regional evaluation for diversion. It's no longer being referred to as RED because now we have other partners, so we're calling it community connections. I almost said corrections, but yeah, community connections. So that's our new project. But when you hear like RED, you hear Yellow Line. Essentially, that's the same. It's certainly the same concept. It's just like I said, it's kind of that evolution. And one thing that, like I said earlier, we recognize that dealing with mental health issues or chemically dependent in jail, county jail, it's not a real good option. It's not a good use of resources. It's expensive. It's not good for the quality of life of the individual that's being picked up. And I think it's dangerous for both individuals being arrested and also for the professionals, the correctional staff specifically. And then, one other thing that we're always really concerned about is no treatment happens in jail. It hasn't even started. So, we can have someone in jail we've seen it for weeks, because of course the judge sets bail. The judge is required to set bail, but if the person's not meeting the bail, they're in jail, and there's literally nothing happening at that point. So this whole concept, whether I say Yellow Line, Red, and from this point on, we'll call it community connections, because that's what it'll be here. That's what it'll be referred to as here. But again, when you hear that, it's the same. If you ever hear someone talking about Red, or we've even had stuff online about Red and Yellow Line, this is just the next step. This is just that evolution. But we're going to be basically having this person working with our law enforcement, in having an office in the law enforcement center, and then basically even at some time responding to calls with us. Of course, that there has to be a few control measures put in place because we've got to make it safe, but that's really the theory behind it. If you ever, couple places that are already doing it, now ours is going to look different because we're smaller. We're just, and geographically even there's a few changes and stuff, and all those factors are taken into consideration. But other places that are doing this is Rochester and St. Paul. I know that there have been 2 law enforcement agencies that have been basically leaders in the state regarding this. And the counties that we're involved with regarding this that are doing the exact same thing is Le Sueur, Nicollet, and Rice. So our 4 counties. And it's through as far as, it is cost effective, because again, jail's it's not a cost effective option. Not that everything revolves around money, but money's a big part of it when you have a small county. Mm-hmm. And so like for this year, for example, it's actually 100% of it's being paid for through SCCBI, South Central Coalition Base Initiative. And so that it's regional money, and there's no such thing as free money, but this isn't like on any type of tax levy or anything like that. It's actually through a grant that we generously we basically got through SCCBI. And again, Mankato, they didn't get this regional money because they had gotten another funding source earlier on, but they actually have 2 individuals doing the same thing hired already, and it's working very well. So we work very closely with Mankato because they're close. We're within their region. So as far as lessons learned, we try to learn as much as we can from them. So it's, what's working good for them, what hasn't worked good for them, we're trying to apply here in New Ulm and Brown County. So that's that. Unless there's questions, that's about all I have to report on. As far as the hiring process, we're trying to move as fast as we can. We got to have the right fit. You got to have the right person for this, because we're maybe even hoping for a transfer from one of their other mental health professionals, but I don't know how likely that's going to be. That would be, of course, the training it's just less because they've worked within the community. But finding the right person's important. Realistically, we have the money, like right now, we could hire them 2 weeks ago. I mean, the money's available through the SCCBI grant. However, realistically, we're probably figuring sometime in November. If I was going to be practical and give a estimation of when the person probably is going to be hired, that's probably pretty realistic.
Dave, what was the title of that position again?
It is community-based coordinator.
Just a long-term question, when we hear that jail is not the place for mentally ill and even some of the addictions and some of this sort of thing happening, first thing that comes to my mind, besides a person recognizing it and addressing the therapy end of it, housing is a situation. If you say jail is not the appropriate placement for them, where? And looking at logistics of that, because I know mental health people can be sitting in jails for 6 months before they're even put into therapy and tested.
No, that's very accurate. One big issue or challenge with that is there's no place to go.
Yeah, and
That's literally one of the biggest deals. It's like, now this person is going to be a lot closer connected with the field, so to speak, as far as, maybe some viable options.
there are none.
However, it's still better than, like, because right now I can tell you as a law enforcement officer, if you pick someone up and we're dealing with individuals, it's usually they're at their worst that particular time. They've been off their meds for days, for weeks, and now everything is just really kind of exploding. So just that basic tension, just the nature of that, when we as law enforcement are dealing with it, we're dealing with situations at the most challenging times. I think that's very accurate to say. There's not many resources available. There's Wilmer, there's some places in Sioux Falls. A lot of places are out of state because Minnesota's, a lot of our regulation, the private practice they just won't do business here. There's a location in St. Cloud. They built the facility, and as they're getting into this deeper, they're like, you know what? We're not doing business here. We'll go to Wisconsin or we'll go to South Dakota. And they literally left the state, so we have less options because of that. So we literally, and I mean, I could fairly have a pretty good background as far as the transition. This went over a sequence of basically decades. And I can if I was just going to give a quick elevator speech, the treatment's gotten better. The community-based treatment, the options got better. Medication got better, and certain types of therapy got better. Those are good things. Okay, that's, if you think of like before the 70s, I wasn't working in law enforcement then, but I mean, I know that before the 70s, as far as placing individuals that are having these challenges at institutions, that was a very common method. So in the 70s, they started saying, okay, the state hospitals this isn't the proper way of dealing with this. And I think they're right. I mean, they weren't wrong by saying that, but now they kind of eliminated a lot of those options, and they went with community health centers. Well, you're talking about a 16-bed facility versus multiple, much more than 16 beds. So now that's when I entered the profession. That's in the 90s, and that's what we're seeing. Now, I didn't know it any different working in law enforcement, but we still had a lot of options, certainly, especially when you have someone that was having the worst day of their life. We had options available, and we had them available very close to us. Well, through time, again, I think treatment got better. I think the medication got better. And I think a lot of times, I'm just going to say that I think they're maybe cutting corners where they didn't need to cut, and they were closing a lot of those options. So now they completely went away. And then even as far as when I talk about maybe, even when I say overregulation, I know sometimes that can be, it almost sounds a little controversial, but that's kind of the case. What happened is you just had kind of government kind of fighting each other, and they started having kind of almost like silly rules on them. And that's why a lot of the private providers, they've said, we'll do business in another state, we just won't do it here. So that just reduced our locations where we can go. So we're very, very limited on options that are available. And this person would be working very closely with that. It's going to be a lot more in tuned where, options or places where they can go. But I'll give you another example. If you have an officer working on the street, they get called to a situation where the person's having the worst day of their life. Maybe of the month, but probably even their life. And now we're involved with it. There's a mental health or chemical dependency issue involved. Our options are pretty much usually jail or jail because we don't have any other option available to us. ER, we'll go to ER because that opens up the door where if we have a medical provider, they have some treatment options available, but not many. But they can get at least admission, because if we take someone to Sioux Falls, they won't take the admission from Dave Borker with a police officer's license. It has to at least be signed off by a medical provider. So that's a lot of times why there's a little bit of a bottleneck there. And I think everybody agrees that's really not the place either. However, that's when you have limited options, you're down to 2 or 3 places. Detox, if they've been drinking at all, that's at least an option. Jail or ER. So again, this is no magic solution. We're not waving a wand or anything, but it's at least a step in the right direction. I'll give you an example, like with Anoka. If someone has to go to Anoka, we're completely out of options. Even the treatment facilities are saying we're out of options. Anoka alone, and again, not everything's about cost, but I think most people would agree you don't want to spend a lot of time at Anoka. But you're talking at $1,375 a day. So when they're talking about, viable options, cost-effective options, I think this is a very good option as far as quality of life and as far as being fiscally responsible. Because when we're talking about Anoka, that's $1,375 a day that hits the levy instantly. That's literally where the money's coming from. Yes.
Do you believe this program will reduce the number of frequent flyers for jail?
Yes, I do. So that's a very good question. So we're talking about jail diversion. So when we're talking about yellow line, initially we're thinking of like when we arrest someone. So law enforcement's arrested them. They come up, it's like, okay, now what's some diversion options? This person, that's going to be their expertise. They're going to be able to help us with this. But we want to take this one step further. So even when we're trying to figure out like the job description, we want this person working basically like a caseworker that has unassigned cases. So a lot of times, I could take people out right now and I could say, okay, I've worked here for 20 some years, and I know this person right now, I believe, is having some issues, some challenges. They're not dealing with anything where we have to arrest them, but we know from past practice, probably tomorrow, in a week, in a month, we're going to be dealing with this individual. And then, at some point, they've done something criminal, and then we do have less options because they've done something criminal. We still have to arrest them. We have to, get them into a safer location. So I do believe this will reduce the actual number of people that we're dealing with this on it. But again, we're in the very, very early stages of that. But I comfortably, I can take you around town and I could introduce this person to people. And this is someone who pushes a desk. The law enforcement officers, that's all they're doing. I think they're going to be a lot more, as far as a resource, as far as finding this individual people that are in need of those type of services. So I'm proud of it. I think it's a step in the right direction. But again, in the infancy stage of the development.
When you hear about some of the mass shootings and whatnot in other states and elsewhere, I know a lot of times you hear about there were all these signs that this person was showing.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that can potentially catch something like that so it doesn't happen?
I hope so. Yep. I mean, I like I said, there's like with all law enforcement officers, I've worked here long enough where I'll even have people approach me you know, and they'll say, you know, and I can tell that their mental health situation for that period of time, it's deteriorating. Sometimes there's very clear signs to me, but a lot of it's also that I just know them well enough. And we're on friendly terms, it's just they're deteriorating. And sometimes I think they're reaching out, other times I believe that, you know, they'll be sharing a story that's just absolutely, you know, challenging to even, you know, you know that their mental health is in a bad spot. Now, as far as law enforcement, there's somewhat limited options that we have even in those situations, because you could just say, well, if you're law enforcement, you know this person, why don't you just do something about it?
Right.
Well, and I've done this several times where I've actually taken the individual, I have enough rapport with them where it's like, okay, how about we go see a medical provider? We don't have to, I'm not placing a hold on you. I'm just saying, let's go down there. Jump on in, let me just check if you've got, you know, a knife on you or anything like that, depending what the history is. But I mean, I'll do a check like that because that's my job. And then we'll literally go down and we'll make arrangements. I've done that many times in my career. But my other option is, let's just say I don't know the person, or you have another licensed law enforcement, that person that's dealing with them. We have an option called a 72-hour hold. But we have to have, it's still custody. So you can't just be guessing at it. And I can't, if the person's just having a bad day and starts yelling at me or starts yelling at someone, it should never be abused. And again, if I'm taking this person to the ER and now they end up on the 4th floor, again, it's still custody. So you've got to, you know, now granted that's being overseen and that's being verified by a medical provider, but again, you got to be careful with that as far as, you know, abusing an option like that.
I think that's one of the struggles that this country has too, is freedom versus public safety, and, you know, the individual's freedom versus the public safety is sometimes they clash, and unfortunately if they don't catch it, then things like that happen.
I think, you know, we have the luxury here. We have I think we have the experience level. Our officers, I'm proud to say that, you know, we hire from within, we promote from within. So I mean, our officers, when I have sergeants and, you know, people that have, you know, the average years of experience is like 15 years of experience if they're a sergeant. And, you know, it goes right down the line. We just hired 2 new officers. But other than that, the next person it's like they've been here 5 years. So I mean, that's a lot of experience. And I think that's a luxury. And I think that's a testament to the mayor and the city council as far as having a good place to work and having good policies, you know, that we continue to work here. Because I mean, experience pays off in those situations.
Yeah.
Like I said, when you can identify problems, because like when you were giving examples with when they talk about there were signs that were being provided, we follow up on those signs already. You know, long before this position, you know, we follow up on it. We have a school resource officer. Sometimes the stuff is involved in school. That's the most the example that I can think of that just happened, most recent example. But you know, that's obviously a luxury that we have in a small town that have that amount of experience versus, you know, if this was a department that's, you know, doesn't have a whole lot of law enforcement, the city hasn't invested in that, and the average years of experience is 2 years of experience. I can think of departments like that. They're not, you know, they don't have the finger on the pulse like that. So I mean, I can say that proudly simply because the city council has, and the mayor and the city council have invested resources so that I think the citizens that are being served well because of that, if that makes sense.
I'm seeing this position as, Min, correct me if I'm wrong, related to the Family Facilitator program, which is being used in the schools as a school liaisons between that and the county and what have you.
Yep.
This would be the police and not just, including the schools, but also the adult population.
Correct.
Do they need?
This is primarily, almost exclusively adults.
Yeah, it's that next step.
Yep.
Does there have to be criminal things happening, or can it just be a police intervention to get the services from this, or is that going to all involve with the job description yet?
Well, we're working on the job description, but to answer that is, no, we would need the criminal
Okay. Yeah. you wanna
involvement.
get
Kind of like
there
I was
before
saying,
that.
I can see that they're progressing, I can see things are getting worse, but they haven't done a crime yet.
Yeah. So
So
that
we
would
would be
answer
able to
some of the
utilize that
things that
resource.
happened prior to it, you might be able to stop.
And, once we hire the person, I could certainly, because I think this is an important commission that works very closely on behalf of the community, maybe bring this individual up here as far as introductions. And, and when you have a policy involved, even if there's something that later on needs to be tweaked, you can always tweak a policy. There's nothing wrong with that, so. Does that answer questions? Well, thank you for your
Dave?
generous use of time.
If I may, I have a question,
Okay.
and this involves everybody here. When you said Minnesota can't or won't or whatever, is there something that we as people, can we talk to our senators, our representatives? Is it a law that they've got put in there, or what is it that people have left Minnesota and gone to Sioux Falls and?
Yes, you can, and I appreciate that comment, Mayor. You can talk to your senators and your state representatives about that, and I have, and I know others have. This is gonna be a slower cycle, but they're in the process right now of creating more resources. In fact,
Funding.
yes, an actual, what I think of community health hospitals. They're not gonna be the big state hospitals, but there's even one being considered in, what's that, Fergus Falls.
Well, the dollars are being cut for group homes. And so I would think some of that same funding pot, if I'm understanding anything about government, that some of that same funding pot would be all the same, and that's been dwindling to nothing. So when we talk to our legal people, that's the thing we're gonna ask for then, is more mental health funding? Is that the
Yes.
avenue? Okay.
Yes. And even some infrastructure. I mean, infrastructure is not the only solution, but when I'm talking even with mental health providers, they're saying sometimes we need something that's, options that is longer than, 2 weeks. Because we have to get these patients back on their medication. Sometimes
weeks
there's
is
a
a drop in the
time
bucket.
involved
Yeah.
with it.
Right.
But yeah, and absolutely, they're working on that as we speak, but again, you know how it goes through, I mean, I think they have the best intentions, but I don't, so anything that you're bringing up to your state representatives and your senators, help us. And like I said, I've talked to both our representative, Torkelson, and Senator Dames, and they're very well aware of this challenge, and I know there's bills being worked on. Okay?
Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you very much.
Can you stick around? We have, in a couple different points here, I just have a question to ask for you.
I'll stay around.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to number 5, budget report. There is a report attached, and it looks like at this point, budget remaining $4,288.47. Right now our balance is $225,36.53, so about 62% still remaining. I know that we talked about having a speaker at one of the events coming up that'll cost. I'm sure there's probably some other things that are coming up as well. Anybody think of anything else? Or any other questions regarding the budget?
No.
All
Do
right.
we have to accept the budget report, or is it just presented as? Because that's relatively
Did
new.
we do that last month?
I don't know if we did or not, but.
We've been given the budget since I was
Okay,
chair, just so we could all see where we were standing.
okay.
I think we're talking more for like next year's budget or whatever.
Mhm.
Number 6, current human rights issues. Newham Forward. I think that Wendy's been going to those, so we'll table that until next month, or she'll be able to have some more updates maybe next month. 6B, school discipline demographics. Jackie?
I read an article a couple months ago about the disparities in school disciplinary actions. The Government Accountability Office, which is a nonpartisan watchdog, did a study and interviewed school administration and visited schools across the country, approximately 95,000 schools. And they collected data from 2013 to 2014 from the civil rights data collection, which includes disciplinary action in more than of the 95,000 schools, of which includes suspension, expulsion, and referrals to law enforcement. They went through K through 12, and they found that black students, boys, and students with disability are disproportionately disciplined. Black students represent 15.5% of all public school students, but make up 39% of students suspended. And it starts in preschool, and students of color receive harsher punishments than their peers by about 23%. It happens regardless of their poverty, grade level, or type of public school they go to, and they all showed these consistent disparities. I would like to contact Jeff Bertrand for the data on disciplinary actions in our schools. Technically, New Ulm, as of 2010, ranked 7th in least diverse cities in Minnesota. I don't believe it's going to be hard to get the information for the demographics. But what I would like to see is, in the report would be male or female, race, grade, the infraction, and the punishment given. I'd like to also try to get the data from Riverbend, because I believe that there would probably be more disparities based on the infractions there. I don't know how legal it is for them to give us that information. I see that, other places have gotten that data. So I want to check with Jeff to see if he would be willing to give us that data. And this is where you come in, Commander. How many student referrals do the school officers around here receive on an average per year? So like if students have an infraction, how often are they referred to the school officers or the safety officers at any of the schools? How many do you receive of those students being turned over to one of the school resource officers?
Mr. Chair, can I just?
Mhm.
I wouldn't know specifically. I would be able to probably, easily find that data,
Mhm.
but I would have to go in our database,
Okay.
probably confer with our school resource officers.
Sure.
We have a new one.
Okay.
They just started this year, because Officer Bramer retired.
Sure.
But yeah, I'd be able to likely, I believe, find information that would be helpful for you regarding that specifically,
Okay.
but I don't have it off the top.
Thank you. Thoughts on this, and then steps if we are able to get this information? I know Jeff has been very active in the New Ulm Forward for the diversity of New Ulm. So I am hopeful that he would like to work alongside us as closely as possible to make sure that this isn't something that's causing an issue with not bringing diversity into our city. But how do you think we should go about it, or do you think this is a good idea? And what steps afterwards do you think we should take if everybody agrees?
I think this is a good first step, just to see the numbers, and then kind of go from there. But that information would be something that we'd be interested in, and kind of go from there.
Should we vote on if it's okay if I contact Jeff to attempt to get this information?
Sure. Does anyone have a motion for Jackie to contact regarding this?
I move that Jackie does this.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Is that all you have, Jackie?
That is it.
All right, let's move on to 7A, the Events Committee Report, the Human Rights Award. Does anyone have any information on
I also have that information.
All righty.
We met last night, Chad and Dee and myself, and looks like to start, we're going to try and get bars and cookies, bars from Lola's, cookies from the Baccarat and coffee, just as desserts or something to have there when we do hold it. Dan is going to be contacting Tim Babel and Ruth Ann Webster to give, like Tim would be the MC and Ruth Ann would do the introduction and kind of talk to our, the group there about what Alma has done. Ruth Ann is a good job at moderating. We have a speaker named Allison Griffith. So she'll be speaking after Tim addresses and Ruth Ann addresses. We'll be giving information to KNUJ and the Journal. I'll be designing invites and flyers. They'll be sent out. Did everybody receive the email with the Google document showing the groups that Alma would like to send out?
I
It wouldn't-
probably only sent that to the events committee.
It would it wouldn't surprise me if we had over 100 people there.
Okay.
So we should plan on a bigger group. Dan is gonna start with the opening, just giving, kind of the frequently asked questions about the Human Rights Commission.
Sure.
And Tim and Ruth Ann will do the intro. Tim, since he nominated Alma, is actually going to do the presentation of the plaque.
Perfect.
The reception, so once Alma receives it, if she chooses, she can do her thank you or her speech. And then Allison, the speaker, will take over. Then Ruth Ann will come back up and dismiss or, just end the presentation part of the night. Diane may be helping with some sort of decoration or some sort of table piece. And Chad has finished with the plaque. So we are pretty much done as what we need to do, other than just the minor things like getting those invites sent out. And it will be on the 23rd
On the 23rd, and I believe at the community center.
upstairs
Yep.
at 7 p.m.
And I understand it's an open house kind of
Yes.
situation, which will be interesting with the program.
Yes. And people may choose to stay if they see that there's going to be a
Yeah.
speaker. This is the first time we've had a speaker, I believe, as the, in the award.
It might be a suggestion when you do send out the invitations that you mention something about speaker will be speaking at a certain time. That gives some people that, oh, I thought I could just stop in, congratulate her, and leave, an option of knowing what their evening might curtail.
So nobody's wandering in.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
hoping to keep it right about an hour. Not the speaker as an hour, but the program as a whole as an hour.
Sure.
Any
And this is the
questions?
senior center, okay.
When we had that program last year at the community center, and it was, what do we count, about 130 people? And it was full.
Okay.
So if we're expecting 100 people, that'll be definitely big enough.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's over 100, that place will still be big enough.
We need to vote on if it's okay to use budget money to purchase the bars and the cookies and coffee
And pay for the speaker.
and pay for the speaker. I think we've already approved
Okay.
the speaker,
Yeah.
but the,
Be a cold beverage too.
I
Yeah,
think
like a lemonade.
punch or lemonade,
Everybody
something like
drinks
that.
coffee.
Yep.
All right, can I get a motion to use the budget money for bars, cookies, coffee, and lemonade?
I'll make that motion.
I get a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
I
All those opposed? Motion pass. Thank you, Jackie. Let's move on to Education Committee. 8A, the Student Commissioner. It sounds like we've received one application. I know Dan let me know that he sent out the information to MVL and Cathedral. Not sure about Newell Public or Riverbend. Does anybody?
I got it out to Riverbend, and
Okay.
I also, with public, was able to give it to Sheldon Ricky, who is the coordinator of Healthy Community, Healthy Youth, and one other person. I don't remember.
Are we
It's
missing?
part of that healthy, it was, Tom Henderson at the Human Services. I
Okay.
sent one to him.
Are we missing anybody? Any schools in there?
St. Paul's, but that's
MVL.
elementary, so it wouldn't matter.
Okay, so we're good there. Move on to 8B, video contest. no videos received.
I think that's probably
Is
a
that-
carryover. I think we just did that from last time.
Tabled.
Tabled
Yeah, it's
until fall.
tabled, yeah, until later.
Hey, in the poster and essay contest, we still need to meet as a education committee. Sorry I didn't set that up, you guys, but myself, Larry, Wendy, and Sue, correct? All right, well, maybe we'll set that up potentially at the library here in the next couple weeks. It would work better for you guys, 6 p.m. or something like that, but I'll send out an email to get that set up on a weekday. Okay, moving on. Number 9, the legislative update. Dan, let me know there's nothing to report at this time. Anybody have any comments or? Okay, move on to number 10, city council liaison. Chad, anything to report?
Actually, I do. I haven't been able to make the last city council meetings due to my coaching football. And football is going to be continuing, so I'm looking for somebody to take my spot early. Would anybody be willing to fulfill those duties?
Don't forget you can watch them on YouTube.
Oh, that counts.
Yes. You get the full meeting anyway.
I mean, I could finish out these last, by watching on YouTube. That wouldn't be an issue.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
What do you got, another month, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's do that. Take a look at YouTube and watch the meetings on there, and then next month we'll talk about who's going to do the next ones. I didn't know that about YouTube either, so that's kind of a nice.
Yeah.
Our meetings are also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I watch those all the time. All right, let's move on. Let's see. 11A, social media. Back to Chad. What's
Back
going
to
on with
me.
that?
Right now, nothing, because I want to figure out grievances. And I wanted to go over it as a group, like how we want to deal with grievances, because there's multiple types of grievances. Are we talking about grievances with the stuff that we have on Facebook? Because that should be just handled by, somebody at the city. Because if they don't like what we're posting, it's a reflection on them, correct?
I think that's a good thing to have Dan here, just for his
Legalities.
knowledge and the legal side of it. So I don't know if you wanted to table that part of it until Dan is
We
here.
can table that until Dan is here.
Yep, I'm fine with that. We'll table that so we can answer those questions. As far as 11B, the city code and charter, is there anything to report, Larry?
No, not until we get the other things lined up, until the charter's passed and done,
Okay.
so,
When is that estimated? All right, thank you.
yeah, okay,
To the best of my knowledge, the council has not received.
right, the report. We will have to, we probably should in our January meeting, review our bylaws. Hopefully by then, everything will be in order and we can review our edit our bylaws too. That should be kind of an annual thing we should do.
All right, so table that until next meeting or January. 11C, the town talk. It's city weekly informational article in the journal. Let me read an email that Dan received. Dan, the journal is given space to the city every Friday to submit an informational article on city operations. Each department takes turns writing an article, which amounts to 2 to 3 articles per year from each department. Lisa has trouble at times getting all the spots filled, so they suggestion opening it up to the boards and commissions who might have information they would like to share with the community. They suggested asking a board or commission to submit an article for review, and would the Human Rights Commission be interested in submitting something? You have a lot going on with the lawn signs and other endeavors. I thought you might be interested in communicating to the general public. Typical articles are 300 to 500 words. And Dan did say that he will write a story for the journal, and he's going to submit it to Lisa. And I'm not sure when that's going to be posted in the journal, but look for that, and we'll definitely talk about that next meeting too.
Would that include our recipient, our award? Or is that going to be a completely
a good one,
separate,
too.
different?
That'll be
But
To
it's
get
free,
something with
so
that.
it could be at least a little bit of a heads
Advance
up.
notice, yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like this is a weekly thing too, so, as far as I know, we can
I think they were
submit.
just looking for a topic for, so like this month will be us, next month could be another board. and,
Okay.
Can I add something to go back to the current human rights issues?
Sure.
I'd like to talk about the graffiti that was done in front of the BNL, the swastikas that were painted on the sidewalk or drawn on the sidewalk last night. Is that when they were noticed, or was this
I think it
a
was
while ago?
Saturday night.
Do you know, Officer Borkert, if anybody reported those?
And I believe they were drawn in chalk.
Chalk?
Mr. Chair, to the best of my ability, my knowledge, no.
Do you have the video still?
I could have,
Okay.
I'd have to, I could specifically look for that
Mhm.
and be able to confirm that, but I try to look through the ICRs and to my ability, or to my knowledge, I should say, no.
'Cause I
Okay.
believe the city, somebody from the city came by and removed.
It might be nice to have on police record. We've talked about other cities that have had swastikas done in other areas. I think it's important for us to keep an eye out and at least understand it's disappointing to see this in our
Absolutely.
town.
Yeah.
It also looks like they were pinpointing a certain person because there was a license plate number it looked like a license plate.
A license plate number, and then there was some strange, it was very incoherent. I think it said reward Wade. I'm assuming they meant Roe v. Wade. There was another mention of,
Obama.
yes, 2 bombs went off at the White House. Fortunately, Obama was not injured. We think they were meaning to say unfortunately, Obama was, but that's reading into it as well. But it was very incoherent in what they were doing, but it was clear on the other end that it had something to do with either race or ethnicity or religion.
Is this a video of someone here in
Did
town?
you take the
I
video?
saw the video on a Facebook group and I put it in a chat and a couple people have seen it, so.
I can show it to you, Commander, if you would like to see it at the end here, in case that would be beneficial at all to you when you're looking through the ICRs. Thank you. That's all I wanted to add.
All right, just one more thing. Looks like there was an article, I'll read it here verbatim. Minnesota Monthly Magazine is hosting a second annual contest to determine which Minnesotan town best embodies the spirit of Minnesota. New Ulm has been named one of the finalists for this year's contest. Dozens of towns signed up, submitted photos, videos, information about the town's history, geography, landmarks, and cultural challenges and opportunities. The Minnesota Nice is something that is very common in New Ulm, with the welcoming signs and that we always try to make new people feel welcome here. So there was a note on here. We even have our own committee, as well as the "No matter where you're from, I am glad you are my neighbor" signs can be seen in many yards here in New Ulm. So our signs.
Did they really say that we're a very welcoming city and that there was diversity here?
I don't think it said anything about diversity.
No.
Wasn't it?
Friendly, I think.
best embodies the spirit of Minnesota.
So that's where I'm
I don't think it
confused
is about
about
diversity.
embodying Minnesota when we don't have diversity and it's not a super welcoming town to brand new people coming in. It seems like it might be a little hypocritical. I love New Ulm. I live here. I love the city, but we need to be honest with ourselves
Mhm.
about what we think we are and what we are actually showing others.
Sure, but quite honestly, I think it's Minnesota Monthly Magazine, which doesn't
Okay.
really focus on a lot of diverse. I don't think their focus is diversity.
No.
You know,
I'm guessing this part of it is a tourist thing.
Tourism
Yeah.
thing.
That makes sense.
Tourism thing, and I think tourists generally think we're a friendly town.
that is true. It is
Yeah.
tourist friendly. It's
Yeah.
a
Very
tourist
much so.
friendly town.
I agree with that.
for sure.
All right, date of the next meeting, October 22nd, 2018. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right.